Bigfoot, Dogman, Jersey Devil, and others. Are they real? Figments of our imagination? Or the most cleverly disregarded reality of all time? Come into the cabin. Let's sit down and find out together. Hey guys, welcome back to the cabin. I'm Robbie.
I'm Norman.
Yep, I'm still Johnny.
I'm Steve.
We got a full house tonight.
This is pretty good.
Yeah, this is the first time we've had all four of us together.
Though I'm kind of worried though when Steve starts stuttering his own name that maybe we need to do something about this bigger name tag.
Yeah.
We'll have an intervention.
Johnny knows all about the interventions. It took him how many episodes, Norm? Where his intervention finally came in?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Quaaludes or what, but it worked.
Bud Light.
Quaaludes or peer pressure? Which one's more powerful?
Guess that depends on your perspective, Johnny, and your willpower. All right. Well, we got a pretty interesting story tonight, and or not story, but a topic, something that we've all kind of talked about on different shows in different ways. But Steve is kind of our resident expert on this type of stuff. If there's any kind of expert or person that you can call an expert at anything. So we're going to be talking about the missing 411 profiles, and we're going to let Steve do a little intro on it, a little explanation. So take it away, Steve.
Okay. I would say 6 or 8 years ago, I had a missing person case that went to a national level. And once that case was over, I started going and looking for cases that were different, that were not your average missing person cases. Something's in the woods, something that was unexplained, something that had low solvability factors, and I stumbled upon the missing 411 books. They were hard to come by when they first come out. You couldn't get them through Amazon. You had to buy them directly from the author. I started researching him, and it's Dave Pilates. I may be saying his name wrong. A few people pronounce it a little different. But he was a police officer in California. The story goes that some off-duty park rangers came to him and started telling him some stories of some missing people in some national forests that they wanted his help on. And he started compiling data, pretty much a data person, and started pulling together different profiles of strange and missing people that's never been found in the U.S. And he's wrote 12 books. He's 10 of them on missing, one of them or two of them's on Bigfoot, and he's had 3 documentaries as well. And it's a rabbit hole for sure. There's a lot of good and bad, and there's a lot of I think basic police investigations, and there's some things that may be more of an author writing things to be interesting to the public. But he definitely has the corner on these type cases in the U.S.
Yeah. I'm kind of interested in this fellow because I've seen some of his stuff on TV, the documentaries. They're fascinating, but at the same time, he doesn't really open up about the subject. I mean, he says he presents the evidence, but I don't know. It seems like sometimes if you're a homicide investigator or a person that handles missing persons, personally, I've seen more evidence brought up in documentaries or narratives. So,
I mean, I think he wants to not give away, his thoughts. He wants the reader to read, or the person watching the show to listen to determine what they think happened. So he doesn't really go down any direct paths on, this is supernatural, or this is just a basic missing person or abduction. He wants to let you think.
What you're saying basically is he doesn't want to incorporate any of his beliefs or ideas. That he just is kind of given a flat, basic, bland. these are the facts type thing.
That's
Which, if that's what he's doing, then I get what you're saying, Norm, and that would make sense, because it would, you know, if he was doing it off of I'm a Bigfoot researcher, and this is how I'm presenting this to you, is how Bigfoot is got these guys, and he would put that spin on it. But if he's trying to do that, or if he was the other way, kind of like some, you know, we talked about before we came on air tonight, we kind of talked about park predators, whereas she kind of presents it as these are humans that have committed all these atrocities. You know, that's how she spun it, and that's how most people who, you know, they're going to, you know, when you go into it with that mindset, it's just like you watch a video on YouTube and you look at the title, and the title says one thing, and then you watch it, and it's completely and totally different. You know, that's that clickbait thing.
Clickbait.
Yeah.
They've fished you in with a title that they think would. So, I think what Steve's saying is he's wanting to just give you the basic bare minimum facts that he has to give you to introduce you to the case, and then lets you make the assumption of what you think may have happened.
Let you become the investigator,
Yeah.
per se.
If you listen to the early Coast to Coast AM deals with Pilates, he would take you right up to the ledge, and then that was the end of the show. He never would give his personal opinion of this, that. It's like everything was a Bigfoot story, minus Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Creepy, in the woods, being stalked, missing, kids gone, found 5 miles away. Basically the Dennis Martin stuff.
Yeah.
But he would go right up to the big hairy guy and then just ghost. I actually got so tired of hearing him on Coast to Coast, because he was on there monthly, and it was repetitive, same deal. Build up this big creepy thing, big guy in the woods, nothing. And it just stopped there.
Yeah.
Don't leave it to my imagination, damn it. You've led me all this way with all these facts.
Just
and
go
then-
ahead and say it.
Yeah, and then just, whoop, I didn't say that.
Well, you know, and I think that's indicative of how things used to be. Because even if you believed it, like most all of us have for the better part of our lives, but back then, you know, it was that stigma of you crazy if you say this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that style of taking you up to the edge of almost saying that Bigfoot stole this child or killed this person, you know, it was almost what you had to do to get the story out there, just so people would listen to it. You know, I mean, because you know, if you called Missing 411 10 years ago the Bigfoot Files, how many people would have listened to it back then? Now you get people, you know, you have people listen to it.
That draws them in.
Yeah, because it's more. I'm not going to say it's socially acceptable, but if one thing that this day and age that we live in now, and you know, we kind of goof off and kid around about age here, but we all were raised in the same generation, the same time frame.
Yeah.
We all have basically the same value system and beliefs and things like that. And we all know that the times we're living in now are not the times that we all grew up in. The four of us grew up in a different time frame. But the one good thing, if there is a good thing of what's going on now, is people are more apt to listen to you about what you got to say, and not, you know, oh, just you're crazy. I don't want to hear that.
Well,
You know?
that'll probably explain this one thing that I'm looking at is Pilates was arrested apparently for fraud. It says for strange circumstances and conspiracy theory. Now, if you wanted to shut somebody up because you're getting close to something or intimidate them, what do?
Well, yeah.
Run a smear
on
campaign.
the other side of the coin is he's very close to something, and by playing the way he does, you know, because I'm looking at both sides of the coin now, is he's got to play it this way, because if he comes out and says it, he might get in trouble, because it'll spring something in people, and then they'll start knocking down the doors of their senators and representatives. Why ain't you doing more? And at the same time, if he downplays it just a little bit, builds it up to the climax and leaves it, makes people think, and it doesn't promote hysterics with the local agencies, national parks, senators, representatives, and so forth. Leaves it there because he's already been told, okay, if you go too far, you've already seen what we can do, type thing. Men in Black, we'll say.
Yeah. And, you know, we've had that discussion before about things. I mean,
Yeah, there's just not enough information about, you know, his arrest and,
No.
you know, what took place. There's very, very little information and news stories about it, but it does sound odd.
yeah,
It
I mean,
does. Because that was just one of the things looking over the small bio that we were just looking at here. And like I said, I try to look at both sides of a coin. And that could explain some things, you know, answer my own question, why doesn't he go further? Because maybe he's been told he can't go further yet.
well, and there again, like Steve said, there's so much we don't know about the arrest. You know, all these AM Coast to Coast shows were after the arrest. I'm assuming, correct?
Probably so.
I don't know when he was arrested.
Yeah.
I've been listening to him for about 10 years.
I want to say it
was in the 90s.
Yeah, what didn't we say it was like 96 or something,
I think
95,
that's-
96
yes,
or something like
That's
that?
correct.
Because I think when we were talking about it, I was like, that's about when I started my career as a police officer, was when he was unceremoniously getting his career ended. So that would have been about 26 and a half years ago, 27 years ago, something like that. So if he was doing those podcast, well, I guess it wasn't a podcast then, I guess it was a radio show, but he was doing that after that,
Yeah, it's-
you know, there's
yeah.
who knows what he was threatened with.
Yeah.
And I think him not giving an explanation is a good marketing scheme. One is he loves football, but he hasn't picked a player or picked a team.
Yeah.
So he's not in any dugout or any football team or baseball team. And second is, I think leaving that open for the Bigfoot world or the UFO world or whatever, they can just
Yeah,
latch on to his story and say, obviously this is what it is.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a marketing thing, I believe, as well.
Well, and that's something too. Is, you know, he's never came that I've heard. I mean, he may have. You may know this better than I do, Steve or Johnny. I've never actually heard him come out and say that these things were directly involving a cryptid or supernatural. Even
he's
now
got,
to this day.
No. He's got David Pilates' Bigfoot 101.
Yes.
And it's a running thing. And since the new UFO book came out, he has Dave Pilates' UFO 101. And it's the Bigfoot thing. I probably listened to 16, 19 different chapters of it.
You can take a test and
It
win a patch.
basically took the old incomplete stories from Coast to Coast AM and threw the punchline in with a lot of evidence, physical evidence. It's like, okay, these are the stories I can listen to, not the incompletes.
Basically, what he did is he went back and completed the.
I wouldn't say that. These are probably current events, but he just fell off my radar because he was very boring. But George Norrie is boring as hell. He'll bore you to death if he was talking about something really cool that you're really into. He'd still put you to sleep. Then Pilates fell right in, you know, with that sing-song voice that he has, that delivery that he has, and it just they were very boring interviews.
Well, see, now I didn't hear Pilates talk at the conference that I was at here recently, but I got to hear Dr. Meldrum talk, and there was people talking about, you know, oh, he'll put you to sleep, he's boring. Dude, I was hanging on every word he said. I mean, there was, you know, he was.
It depends on the listener.
Yeah, well, he was very cognitive of what the audience was picking up on or not picking up on. He was really he was engaging with the audience, I guess is the best way to put it. And I think I was talking to you about this, Steve. He was just like, he would use the word inference, and he would be like, look, I just want to make sure everybody understands what I'm saying. And he explained what inference meant, and he said, but he was like, you know, I'm not trying to look down on anybody. He said, but I'm used to speaking to a certain group of people that I have to use words like this too. So, I'm not talking down to anybody. I just want to make sure everybody understands what I'm saying. So he would, if he used a word like that, he would make sure and some people may look at that as him acting like he was smarter than, but I took it as he wanted to make sure everybody understood what he was saying.
Words carry weight.
Yeah, and I took that as being very engaged with the audience and being able to read the audience. And some of the stuff that he was saying was just like, wow, I've never thought about that. He started talking about sexual dimorphism in all the other great apes and how it's all different. And you hear great apes, you think, oh, okay, well, chimpanzees and gorillas and orangutans, all that stuff's the same. But it's not. Whereas, like, gorillas, they have a harem, so they have a constant supply of females all the way around them. Whereas in an orangutan, the males defend a territory and females come in, and chimpanzees are more or less like they all just intermingle and roam around.
Want to
So,
be a gorilla?
well, that's the thing. You think gorilla, and we're talking what I just mentioned. We're talking.
Insert hillbilly joke here.
Yeah, gorillas don't have the nuclear arsenal that a chimpanzee does, is the way he put it. You don't have to have as much bang for the buck. So you would think a gorilla would be the big boy of the great apes, but it's not. Because it doesn't have to be. Because it's got a harem of females all the way around it. Whereas a chimpanzee, you got to make sure that it takes. I love that look on your face, Johnny. But I would have never thought about that because he was talking about how size and all that stuff, not size of what we were just talking about, but like Patty, because based on her footprints, she was about 6'8", 700 pounds, and I think they call him Big Boy, the one that was the male that they found around that area too, the footprints. He would be somewhere around 7.5 to 8 feet at about 1,200 pounds. So he was saying he doesn't believe that Bigfoot get to be the 12, 13 feet that a lot of people say. He just believes it's, so, big males will be around the 8.5 foot on the high, maybe 9 feet on the high side. 1,200 pounds ish. So, and he was also talking about that if there's not a big family group population roaming around and they are solitary, then you're probably going to have which this plays into the things that we've heard about, a lot of females getting snatched.
Yeah.
With the sexual dimorphism. They're probably more on the lines of chimpanzees, which is kind of scary.
And important a storm.
There you go.
When you mentioned about his size, I was in Philadelphia one time, and I was on the second story of a conference, and I looked out the window and I saw this guy that was the biggest person I ever seen in my life, and it was Shaquille O'Neal. He was coming to the conference, but he was around a bunch of people, but he was so much.
Yeah, he's
That
a big
is a
dude.
huge guy.
He's a big dude.
And I mean, if you see something in the woods and that size,
What's he going
definitely,
about 350
he was-
back at his peak?
Yeah, he was just a monster compared to everyone else. Just I could see, I was on the second story looking down, but he was.
Here, I'll give you a good example of that, like you were just talking about. One of my best friends works for the city police department over here. He is 6'8". He's close to 7 foot. Big dude. We went up to Tennessee for one of our other buddies' bachelor parties, and we went to the little Ripley's, believe it or not, it was right there, and was it Ralph Waldo? What's the big? Is it Emerson? Yeah, Ralph Waldo Emerson. I thought that was it, but I was like, nah, that can't be it. Anyway, he was like 8 foot something, and they've got this mechanical animatronic of him, and it's got him sitting down in a chair, and then he'll stand up. And like I said, Nate's 6'8", and standing next to that thing, it was still taller than him sitting down in the chair, and it stood up, and Nate barely came up to its chest.
Wow.
And I barely come up to Nate's chest. And I'm, average height is 5'9". I'm 5'9".
More like 5'6".
Well, depending on where you.
You look bigger on radio.
Well, depending on what gas station I'm walking out of. I'd say, Tyler, you're about 6'8" too, I think. So Nate's
Wow.
about Tyler size. So just imagine something that he only comes up to his chest. I mean, that's huge. Like you say, you see.
This Ralph Waldo was that tall?
Yeah,
That big?
He's in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Is this the guy they had to bury in the piano case?
Piano case, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, he was big.
Yeah, he was a beast.
He's like 8'2", I think, or.
Okay.
But and you think about it, there's been skeletons found bigger than that of humans. I mean,
DA is going to be so proud of you. We have segued so far away from the topic. I don't like herding cats, but
we have been derailed.
That's a good thing, though.
Yeah. Hey, we did good the other night. We went over an hour before we got off topic.
well, and y'all didn't discuss recipes for an hour. It make me starving.
Yeah, it usually devolves to food at most point. I'm sure we probably talked about food at some point during that night, but yeah.
I think Doc's the smallest or the healthiest guy in the whole crew. Everybody else is thinking about chili cheese fries.
But well, anyway, reining it back into our topic.
Steve, let me ask you this: how does Pallades figure out the criteria for his cases?
I think when he first started, he probably didn't have a clue, and that's like linking together cases, just like the Golden State Killer. Other places wasn't linked together for a long period of time, and I think probably over time, as he started doing Freedom of Information Acts and getting reports and looking through things, he started seeing a pattern. And obviously, he's an analyst. I think that may be the reason his stories are just so monotone and bland, as he's telling a case file that most people are not interested in unless you're an investigator.
He's basically reading the narrative of an incident report.
And then I think some of the things, and there's a whole list of things, and I don't think any of them are exact. I think he's changed a few times, but I mean, there's some of them are just, especially people that's not found. And if it's associated, I believe, with, a runaway or, endangered adult or a homicide or suicide notes are left and things, I don't think he looks at any of those. I think it has to be a unique case that someone is missing in the forest or in one of the national forests or one of the national parks. And then he goes through a criteria of a few different things that's important to him. And a few of them are like, let's say the area has already been searched before. They bring in, when a child's missing or an adult, they'll bring in dozens or hundreds, and sometimes the military and helicopters and drones. And, they've searched some of these areas multiple times, and then they'll find that person in that area. Things of that nature, and, no cause of death. When you have a forensics pathologist, I think we had one forensics pathologist in our state. Now we have more.
Yeah.
But someone at that level of knowledge that cannot determine a cause of death, that's pretty unusual.
Yeah.
And,
Well, and too, you you think about autopsies and how they've progressed.
oh God, yes, they've changed a lot.
The science behind them
Yeah.
now is with the types of equipment they can use and the depth of the testing.
Yeah, I mean, the first autopsy I ever went to in law enforcement versus the one I went to a year or two ago when I was a detective at Seneca was just like light years of difference between what they could do, what they could look for, what they could determine. I mean, without getting into the details and grossing people out, I mean, it's unreal the difference in, 20-something years, what it's come to.
And some of these cases, you have people that's all their clothes are missing, which is odd. But I mean, there's some theories behind that from, someone who's had hypothermia or something.
They think they're getting warmer.
They think they're warmer and shed clothes, and sometimes it's just not there. I mean, don't bring your cell phone or your wallet. You're hiking in the woods. It's kind of odd. Some of them are just found way too far away than the location where they've left at, and they're found at a different height and altitude and distance. You know, that a 6-year-old may not can travel that far that fast.
Like we've talked about this before. The hunter in Missouri that they said was hypothermia that killed him. You know which one I'm talking about, Norm? The one that we talked about on DX Machina at the same time frame with the FedEx driver.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they found his gun leaned up against a tree, found a bunch of blood. You know, Johnny, I know you've hunted all your life like I have. Steve, have you been a hunter?
Some. I've been into the woods a lot.
Yeah. Norm,
My hunting don't
I
count.
know you're not a hunting guy, but you're still a gun guy. If you're in the woods and you have to shoot something, are you going to leave your gun up against a tree and go track it? No. I mean, that's hunting 101, right, Johnny?
That's it.
I mean, because you don't know that what you just shot is down, number one. Number two, you don't know what dinner bell you just rang for any kind of big predators that are in the area. You don't leave your gun against a tree to go track whatever you shot. So they find his gun up against a tree, find all this blood, which they never said whether the blood was deer's blood, his blood, or something else. They never released that. And then find him, do you remember how far away it was?
Quarter of a mile?
Yeah, something like that. And then said he died of hypothermia. But the case is still open. Why is the case still open? Probably FOIA. You
Probably.
can't FOIA a case that's still listed as open. Even though they listed the cause of death, they found him, the case is still listed as open. Just like the Amazon driver.
There's a lot on that one because there was another death that occurred before that, same location,
Now-
similar circumstances.
Now, the Amazon driver probably wouldn't qualify for one of his missing 411, but I would think that the hunter would definitely cross over into that. Even though they found the body, there's still way too much. They say he died of hypothermia, but it was not cold enough the night before. Norm, you're the medical guy. How cold does somebody have to be before they get?
Got to be below
And
zero.
he was not, to my knowledge, was not
Below
found in the
32
creek.
Below 32 degrees.
So, I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff with that one.
Also, and you can't say he did this, you can't say he didn't. So if he ate something native, that would be a possibility, a hallucination, but there's no evidence that he ate wild mushroom per se, or tried some berries or something.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't released anything other than.
There's no evidence to or against. We don't know because there's nothing that we know.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the only things that would be the variables that might say. I mean, to me, using hypothermia is just a label to make everybody.
It's a scapegoat.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's true.
That's all it is.
And I think the canine dogs, and I'm not a canine handler, you know.
Well,
I'm definitely
that was my
that's
one of my things. So
whenever there is no track, and I know that sometimes there's not, but I mean that unusual odor in the woods is not normal. But the cadaver dog side, you know, if it is someone missing and they think they're deceased, I've had the honor to work with some of the top cadaver dog teams across the country, and those dogs are unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, they can find a drop of blood on a Band-Aid in an acre. I mean, it's just unbelievable, and they can't find things.
Well, I remember when I first got into canine handling, Greenville County was just getting their cadaver dog.
Yeah.
Carl, I can't remember what his last name was, had that black lab that he had. You remember which one I'm talking about?
I think I do, yes.
I can't remember what Carl's last name was, but Charlie Kirshner was helping him work with that dog because that's who I got my dog from. And Charlie Kirshner is like the man when it comes to here, where he was. He was DC Metro Police Department was one of the first K9 units in the country, and Charlie worked his way up to pretty much master trainer of that. He knows, he's forgotten more about canines than all of us at this table together will ever know. So he came up there to Oconee County with us when we were having a seminar to do some training. and they were sinking. I mean, it wasn't real bodies, but they sunk body bags that had, I don't know if it was tissue. I don't know what they used, what the training implements
Some
were.
of the dirt where dog
Yeah, but they had
is laid.
they had something in there that had that scent on it. And they sunk it down under about, I want to say that area, if I remember right, was like 40 feet deep.
40?
Yeah, something like that.
I gotta dig my holes deeper.
Well, they put that dog in a boat
Yep.
and started, just had a little trolling motor on that boat, was just putting it across. And they let it sit out there for probably, they put it out there when we first got out there that morning. And Carl and the dog didn't go out there till sometime after lunch. So we'd been under the water for a while, you know, a couple hours at least. And gets over to that area, and you know, we knew or remembered where they sank it at, but Carl hadn't got there yet. And as soon as that dog got close, it started getting up around the bow of that boat and started barking, and it sat and alert, and they stopped the boat, and he said, drop the marker here. He dropped the marker. Diver gets suited up and goes down, and sure enough, there it comes up. I'm like, how in the world? Underwater. 40 feet of water.
That's impressive.
Yes.
They also can do it in concrete. Mm-hmm. So many feet under.
Jimmy Hoffa.
But I think we could probably sit here and do another 30 plus minutes or more talking about this stuff.
I mean, it's an interesting topic. It's different, and you know, people have questions, especially the families who are missing their loved ones. Just podcasts like this help open that door.
So, y'all want to keep on talking for a little bit more about this, or
I think we should. I mean, this is a good topic. I mean, I like where this
we're about our normal time frame for a show, but we hadn't done a really long show in a while. So, yeah. What do you think, Johnny?
I'm down like 4 flat tires.
And some of the other unusual things, and Johnny probably knows more than I do on some of these stories, but where you have
Johnny knows a lot of unusual things. We found that out.
well, when you have some of the ground pounders or the people searching for the missing, they hear someone hollering for help, and several people have heard that, and they just could not find them. And they've been in that area multiple times, and a few people have thought they've heard people hollering for help, and it's like they're underground or in another dimension or somewhere.
What if it was a distraction?
Well,
to pull them off the real path.
Could very well be.
And
there's 2 theories on that, and you've hit on one is the dimensional. The other one would be mimicry if it was a Bigfoot-like creature.
Yeah.
this is something that we've talked about several times on DAX Machina, and I firmly believe, and I think you and I I know you and I have, and probably you and I, Johnny, have talked about it too, but if you overlay the missing 411s with the cave systems, it's almost an exact match.
Yeah.
Then, if you overlay a third map on top of that, which is Bigfoot sightings, they're all almost identical.
Yeah.
Now,
I think you can go forth with magnetics.
probably, but here's my theory on this, and I know you and I have talked about this, Steve, and you kind of have the exact same theory that I have. And there again, folks, this is not
It's not science.
Yeah,
It's not proven.
this is theory and conjecture, and it's just a bunch of 4 guys sitting in a cabin talking about this. But this is my theory. I think Steve shares it. I'm pretty sure Johnny probably shares the same thing, and I'm sure Norman probably shares it too. But all this quote unquote tree knocking that we hear, I don't think any Bigfoot creatures walking around the woods with Louisville sluggers slapping on the side of a tree. I don't see that happen. I don't see, them picking up a tree or a piece of wood. It's possible, yes, but this is just
until a visualization is actually seen. The other clue is what you're about to say is.
But I have watched a documentary on a blind guy that has taught himself echolocation. Tongue clicks. Now, you think of something as big as a Bigfoot. If it's out clicking its tongue, and Steve has actually heard this in the wild, he's told me about it, and he said it sounded just
That's what
like
it sounded like to me.
a tree knock, but it was close enough to where he could pretty much tell it was a tongue click. Now, if you were a creature that did not want to be found, you did not want your remains being found, remains of your clanmates or whatever, where's a good place to hide?
Underground.
In a cave. How many cave systems are in places like Missouri and Tennessee and Kentucky? And I mean,
They'd have to Google an answer, and that would be right.
there's thousands and thousands and thousands. The Mammoth Cave systems in Kentucky, there's thousands of caves just in that cave system alone. There are caves where you can go in Tennessee and come out in Kentucky or Washington. I mean, there's no telling it. I mean, there's caves that would take weeks to explore. So if you didn't want to be found, that'd be a heck.
And you could see in pitch black. That'd be cool.
Or you could you taught yourself how to echolocate within that. I mean, bats do it. And here again, this goes back to my theory about the adaptive camouflage. All we got to do is look in nature to find the answers that we're looking for right now. How many creatures in nature already can use echolocation? Bats, dolphins, killer whales. So this is not a theory that's so off the wall that where are you pulling that out of? It's already in nature. Just like the adaptive camouflage is already in nature. So if a human being can teach himself, somebody who's been blind his entire life, can teach himself and can get on a bicycle and echolocate himself around a course that somebody else has set up that obviously we know he has no clue about, why is it hard to believe that this thing can't do it? And you think about being in some of these massive cave systems and something that big clicking, making that sound, it's not that far of a shot off the beaten path to think this is possible.
I saw a guy, I'm not sure if it was TED Talk or not, but he was actually talking to an audience, and he was teaching younger people who were blind how to actually use echolocation. He would take like a blackboard and put it in front of his face and click and make a sound and back off of it, and kind of was showing people that how the change of sound is, and he was teaching like classes on that. So I think it's very possible, especially in a cave. It's gonna definitely echo a different sound depending on the size and the depth and
temperatures.
And how many stories have we heard about people going in and exploring caves and finding, backpacks and remains and things like that that were way further in than anybody should have. So, Steve, you know what I'm talking about when I say this. You get one thing, it's you start building up, the totalitarian or you know what I'm saying. Totality of the situation or the
I understand what a reasonable person would believe it's probably
you
true.
You start building up. You get one red flag. It's just, but you start getting 5, 6, 7 things lining up in that, then.
And I have a friend who helps map caves, and it's just they do some things that I'm not going to do. I mean, they crawl through some holes big as basketballs and in places that I'm not going to go. But they've helped with the Tennessee, and I know if you Google, there'll be 6 or 8 you can find. I know there's over, I believe, 11,000 that they've actually mapped in the state of Tennessee. So I think that number's just growing as they have time to go to other locations. So.
Well, I think we're gonna have to.
I think we'll have to do a part 2 on this.
Yeah, I'd love to keep on going, but our tech guy's got something he's got to do, so we got to wrap it up for tonight. But this definitely needs a part two, because this is something that I've been interested in a while. I know Steve, you
Yeah.
got an interest in. Norm does too. Johnny, this stuff we've all talked about off camera.
I've
So
watched some of
or off
the
audio.
programs on Amazon. Got some of the books in my queue to read, and it's just a fascinating subject.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll do the brief version of our version of the Ozarks goodbye. We'll just leave it off with saying, there's several ways to get in touch with us. You can get in touch with us on our YouTube page, our Facebook page, our email address, which is what's really out there 2022@gmail.com. What's our Facebook page, Norm?
It's what's really out there. You can IM us. You can leave a message on the Facebook page. You can ask us anything. If you got a question, you got a concern, you want to tell a story, you need somebody to talk to because your neighbor don't believe you've seen Bigfoot or you've seen the flashy lights. You need someone to listen to you so you can tell your story. We're here for you. We have investigators around the U.S. and I think in a few different countries now that we can reach out to other organizations to talk to you, help you out in some way, shape, or form. Just don't be afraid to ask. Also, if you have a topic you'd like us to talk about, please reach out on any of the above places and tell us you want to hear about such and such. We'll do our best to research it and get you some answers.
All right. That's all we got from the cabin tonight, guys. I'm Robbie.
I'm Norman.
I'm Steve.
Gotcha. I'll go last. You left me out.
How did I leave you out? It's your place to say it.
I heard these kids talking this other day, and I'm checking into it. Some new tech. It's called carrier pigeons.
Are you going to get some carrier pigeons now, Johnny?
Right now, I got carrier goats and chickens.
And
Tick.
pigs.
They carry mites, they carry lice, they carry eggs. One of them does.
Oh.
It's kind of cool.
So what do carrier pigeons carry?
Words and like bits and bytes of data, I hear.
I was
So
worried. I was worried
It's a
when he
new
said,
tech. It's a little high tech.
Is that how you send a tweet to somebody on a carrier
I
pigeon?
reckon. You got to send the right bird.
Well, birds do tweet.
Yeah, I think Tyler thinks that's a dad joke. All right, guys. We'll see you next week.
Have a good one.
see you
Y'all
soon.
be safe.